Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up. It is indeed a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. 2 hours to play with. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at Triax57. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on a absolutely scorcher of a Tuesday along the East Coast and up and down the 95 corridor and, of course, the Jersey Shore on this 24th of June. 2025, as always, stay connected with us, bring something to the table. It's pretty easy to get social with us as well at Triax57 on Facebook, IG, and X. And you can always log on to Triax57.com. And you can follow me as well on IG and X at Rich Q on Q. TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. And I already see a ton of eyeballs creeping in on this Tuesday, which is always good to see. A lot of stuff to dive into. A very busy last couple of days, 24, 48 hours in the world of sports. NBA heavy today. Kai Carlin covers the Philadelphia 76ers for Sixers Wire. He's going to join me at about 15. NBA draft right around the corner. You got some movements and some trades already in the NBA. Jonathan Marshall, WMUR, with his weekly spot, will kind of put a bow on the NBA Finals, some of these injuries, how they affect the betting lines going forward. And he'll give us a quick little glimpse of where he also sees the top 2, 3, 4, 5 picks in the NBA draft, because we already know where it's going to be settled at number one with the Dallas Mavericks. And, of course, Cooper Flagg. I mean, that's a foregone conclusion. And then Lloyd Vance would join me right around 5:25. A lot of NFL news that broke. Plus, we'll continue to look at these divisions, and we're breaking down the AFC South. So if you happen to be a Colts fan, if you happen to be a Texans fan, if you happen to be a Titans fan, or if you happen to be a Jacksonville Jags fan, then you might want to stay locked in when do our breakdown as well. And I say that in tongue in cheek with our displaced fan, Vince, who goes from Pittsburgh to Jacksonville. But how about this to start things off as we talk about, what's trending right now in the world of sports and what's going on in the NFL. I mean, that's kind of like the big news of the day. I guess when you think about it, these reports, right? I mean, we'll get into, some people suggested the Giants should cut Russell Wilson. We got collusion in the NFL, which I'm going to get into right now. And then Rodgers one and done. And I mentioned that trade in the NBA, Boston trading Drew Holiday. So we'll talk NBA, like I said, in about 15 or so minutes. But, this story that comes down in the NFL today, and good job. And I know I've been critical of Mike Florio in the past, but him and Pablo Torre, really nice job here, kind of uncovering memos that were leaked and getting documents that the NFL encouraged collusion, which, the NFL trying to desperately hide these docs. I mean, you talk about shadiness behind closed doors. The NFL right now, that this has been reported. An independent arbitrator wrote that there's little question the NFL Management Council, with the blessing of the commish, remember now, protecting the shield, Roger Goodell, encouraged teams to reduce guarantees in NFL contracts during a 2022 owners meeting. Folks, that's huge. Now, the arbitrator of the 2022 lawsuit by the NFLPA, the NFL Players Association, alleged collusion by the league and its owners ruled there's not evidence to verify that collusion occurred. Basically, it's all about, listen, I'm not going to pay some of these vets. I'm going to reduce these guaranteed contracts. I'm not going to allow them to make the most, money at that moment. And listen, if any of this is true, then the NFL is in big trouble now. The NFL is in big trouble. I mean, this is, if you can show cause, if you can prove this right now, it's like, think about it. You got the holy grail for the union. The NFLPA is probably one of the toughest unions aside from MLB. So the lawsuit in question is from a couple of years ago when the NFLPA alleged that teams and league violated the CBA by colluding not to offer players fully guaranteed contracts following one of the worst contracts in NFL history, which we talk about a lot on the show. Deshaun Watson banking $230 million guaranteed when he signed that contract with the Browns in 2022. It called for damages and for certain quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, to have their contracts voided. I mean, I don't know where you guys, if you've been reading up on this, if you're just tuning in and you just heard about it now on Middays, this is a major bombshell. It really is, because if you're if you're trying to prevent these players to not getting the max at the end of the day, you're doing a disservice. It's unlawful, by the way, and it goes against everything that the NFLPA stands for, and they're in there to protect. And the NFL always tells their teams, you need to basically conduct business professionally, because it's all about projecting the shield, right? That's it. You protect the shield, and then all of a sudden, you do right, and the NFL, the PA, the fans, the commish, the players, no one's going to have a problem with you. But if the NFL is telling teams to act in a certain way, and again, you're talking about voiding these contracts, or not voiding these contracts, not revising these contracts, withholding funds, basically saying, listen, we think you're X amount, we're not going to back in your contract with X amount of dollars on the guaranteed end. That's a no-no. That's a really, really bad look by the NFL. It really is. And the problem is, why are you keeping quiet? Why are you keeping quiet? We know the commissioner, Roger Goodell, he makes millions of dollars. As long as he keeps making these owners money, no one's ever going to vote Roger Goodell out. But the NFL Players Association, listen, they didn't publicate any of this, right? I mean, it was like a partial victory when you talk about these, internal political reasons. So you've got to dig deep here. You've got to peel back the curtain on a lot of the layers, but there can be millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that has been left on the table because these players were essentially screwed. I mean, and we always talk about colluded. And listen, now there's thought coming out that the NFL colluded to prevent Lamar Jackson from getting that guaranteed contract, right? So again, maybe there's the fine line of demarcation to certain contracts, but if you take a step back, and if you're talking about the Watson contract and then the trade and the NFL, the owners, a lot of them were upset with the deal because it turned out to be a ridiculous contract, but some weren't upset because it turned out to be a ridiculous contract. And also because Watson was an alleged serial sexual abuser. So there was really no apathy in that regard. The fact that he got the fully guaranteed kind of raised eyebrows. And again, we're talking about the standard NFL player contract, which has all types of verbiage and loopholes, and I can get out. I can, null and void. I can find, the devil's in the details in this. And the problem is that in the original lawsuit, the NFLPA alleged that the collusion at the owners' meeting prevented Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Lamar Jackson from possibly getting their own fully guaranteed deals, meaning they could have got the type of numbers at the time that Deshaun Watson got, which, again, every single solitary penny was guaranteed. So if Russell Wilson signs a 5-year deal worth $300 million and only 60, he's leaving, $240 million on the table. I'm just giving you arbitrary numbers as example, but it's a bad look. It's a really, really bad look because the players are the league. Period. I don't care how you maneuver it. The players, they're the league. And the NFL should know better. They should. But the NFL will never admit when they are wrong. And the owners, as long as the commissioner makes them money, look, it's a fully guaranteed contract, right? And if you remember, a couple of days after that contract was signed, Jeff Pash, who was executive VP, general counsel of the NFL, sent an email to Goodell in which an upcoming slide presentation for the owners' meeting was discussed. Now, you got to read it. You can go to Athleon Sports. It's very, very interesting because, again, they're talking about raising guaranteed monies. They're talking about, what the players deserve. Now, ultimately, collusion is very hard to prove, but I look at it like this. Anytime we're talking about sports, right, you're talking about if it acts like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it's got to be a duck. That's just the way I look at it. So the NFL, to a man, it's a shady business. It's a sneaky, shady, underhanded kind of business. And they really aren't looking out for the players' best interest. They're not. The players make the league. The league doesn't make the players. You take the players away, you don't have a league. You don't have the talent. You don't have the ratings. You don't have the revenue. You just don't. You just don't. Is it a privilege to play in the NFL? Absolutely. Absolutely. Shouldn't take that, for granted. But if the NFL is conspiring and they're preventing these players from, guaranteed contracts, because nothing is guaranteed in life. So when Matthew Stafford signed his deal, he fell down the steps. If he had 30 guaranteed, that's one thing, and got injured. I'm talking about years ago. But all the money that's left on the table for some of these players, you're talking about Deshaun Watson, who's not even on the level of these other three quarterbacks. Even Russell Wilson past his prime, or Kyler Murray still there. Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP, great quarterback. If monies was left on the table, I would be livid. I really would. If I'm a player, if I'm a quarterback, I would be absolutely livid that the league's conspiring or colluding against me to prevent me from making as much as I can possibly make. That is a major, major, major faux pas, and that's a major problem. And the NFL, the players' union, they will not look kindly at this. They won't. They really don't, because, again, you got to look at the language, and the language agreed upon by the NFL pretty much cost it a verdict in the collusion battle, which is another thing that we also have to get into. I mean, if the NFL and the NFLPA are hiding this ruling, and the NFLPA is in line to protect the players, period. I mean, that's why you have the Players Association. But if the NFL ultimately won, the NFL had every reason to keep this decision quiet. The case proved that the NFL tried to get its teams to collude, and that's not good. And again, Florio did an excellent job. He's got that legal background of laying it out, of really laying it out. Now, you're talking about forget about hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe $1 billion when we're talking about from a liability standpoint. And the money's that's left. So it's a bad, bad look by the NFL. I got some comments coming in. We'll get into that. We'll open it up. Kai Carlin covers the Philadelphia 76ers. Draft's right around the corner. We will dive into that. Jonathan Marshall at 5 o'clock on the NBA. We'll look ahead to some of these opening lines for next season. Also, Lloyd Vance at 5:25, 5:30. We'll get his insight on this, damning report. And I feel, too, don't think for 1 minute that, NFL Network or ESPN or, what have you, they're not going to, they're in bed with the NFL. So they're not, it might be a blurb on the ticker at the end of the day. It might be a blurb on the ticker, period. But it's a horrible, horrible look if this is true, because these players now putting it all on the line. They're putting it all on the line. And that's why I have no problem when the players go out and try to make as much money as possible. I really don't. It does not bother me one bit. Go out, try to make as much money as you possibly can if you're a player, because nothing is ever guaranteed. And you know it. They're mercenaries. The NFL players are mercenaries. This is why when we talked about it the other day, it's different in the NFL. You'll get that player that wants to play their entire career with one team, but there's an opportunity to make more money after a championship, or you're not being utilized, or you feel you're being undervalued. Go at it. Go and do it. And they have every right to do it. They have absolutely every right to do it. Players deserve to make as much as they can, period. I don't, years ago, I used to get so bent out of shape. I can't believe you're paying this guy X amount of. Deshaun Watson was not worth $230 million, not even at the time of that contract. He just wasn't. He just wasn't. And it turns out to be one of the worst, right? Contracts in NFL history. There are some text messages floating around too, in this story that then Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson, they were getting on him because he failed to parlay the Watson contract into a fully guaranteed contract of his own. I mean, leaving a lot of money on the table, right? Leaving a lot of money on the table. And that's the problem now we have with the NFL. All right, quick timeout. We'll talk a little NBA. We'll talk some Philadelphia 76ers on the other side, cranking it up on the Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. Hi, Carlin's going to join us on the other side. Keep it locked in. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on this Tuesday down the shore.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
What the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget, we are live Monday to Friday from 4 to 6 Eastern Time. We're also on demand following our live stream on Triax57. You can always get social with us as well. Facebook, IG, and X. Log on to Triax57.com. Follow myself on IG and X at Rich Q, and of course on TikTok at Rich Q on the mic. And how about this? We had a, I guess you can say, clean off the dust off the shelves and bring out one of our best and brightest NBA insiders. Covers the Philadelphia 76ers editor, Sixers Wire, USA Today. My guy, also senior NBA writer and editor as well, Kai Carlin. It's been a minute, my friend. How you been?
It has been way too long, Rich.
It really has. I mean, I turn around, you young guys now, all of a sudden, you guys are getting engaged, getting married, having kids. I mean, I feel like we were just talking about Sixers odds, maybe 6 or 7 months ago on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Now we got to get into the NBA draft, but it's great to have you back on, and I know we're going to get you on doing a lot of weekly stuff as well. But let's get right into it. So, all right, we know the draft is 2 days away. And right now the Sixers sit with the third overall pick. And I ask you at this moment, is there, from what you're hearing, do you believe at all they would entertain trading that pick?
My God, I've said this so many times, Rich. I believe trading down is the absolute best option. I don't think it's even close. Like, I think that's by far their best option. And here's why. Whoever they pick at number 3 is not going to all of a sudden just make or break their championship hopes. That comes down to Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. Whether people want to admit it or not, Joel and Paul George are the two guys that are going to decide how far the Sixers go. It does not matter who they pick at number 3 on Wednesday night. I think they should trade down. I think, to me, the New Orleans Pelicans make a lot of sense. Ace Bailey obviously canceled his workout with the Sixers. I think the Pelicans really want him. If you could trade the number 3 pick, end up getting the number 7 from New Orleans, and maybe getting a win-now player like a Herb Jones, or, I mean, if you could maybe finagle your way to get Trey Murphy III, all of a sudden the Sixers have depth. They have younger pieces. They have reliable pieces, players that can help them win now in an Eastern Conference that all of a sudden, Rich, is wide open with the injuries to Halliburton and Tatum and Lillard. So, I mean, the opportunity is there. For me, trading down is by far the best option.
Interesting. And yeah, thanks for clarifying. Today's a Tuesday. The draft is Wednesday. For some reason, I was thinking it's Thursday. I always kind of, the NFL draft always on Thursdays. But with that being said, so you said a couple things, and I just scribbled a note or two while you were speaking. So here's my issue. At 3, you're right. You might not get that quote player right away, right? I mean, it depends on what direction. We know that flag's going to be taken number 1. Everyone believes Harper's going to go number 2. So then, okay, here we're at, we'll get into Edgecombe or Bailey or whatever at 3 for the potential of the Philadelphia 76ers. Are they drafting? Is the mindset to draft and build around Embiid, or is the mindset to draft and build around a guy like Tyrese Maxey?
Oh, man. That is going to be the $1 million question heading into Wednesday night, because Daryl Morey has continued to come out and say on record that, yes, we think Joel's going to come back healthy. He kind of compared, I guess, the guy, the surgeon, forget his name. I want to say Dr. Glashow is the one who performed the surgery for Joel. I guess the same doctor who performed the surgery for Joel performed the surgery for Kawhi Leonard. And I guess Leonard had a really good playoff run for the Clippers. I will say that. They lost round 1, but Leonard was looking pretty good. So I'm curious to see how Joel comes back. Daryl Morey has been on record saying they expect Joel to be back when the season opens this October. They expect Joel to be able to get out on the floor and at least do a majority of the things, right, that he used to do. But I think it's fair to question what kind of shape will Joel Embiid be in. This is 2 knee surgeries in 14 months.
Yeah.
He's a human being at the end of the day, and a very large human being at that. So as amazing as Joel Embiid is, and like everybody knows how great he is, he's by far a top 3 player in the league, like when he's right. But I don't think we can expect Joel Embiid to come back and look like Joel. So I think it's fair to question whether it should be Tyrese Maxey's team at this point, which is why I think VJ Edgecombe, if they stay at 3, I think Edgecombe is the pick.
Yeah, because look, end of the day, you can't serve 2 masters, right? And that's the great debate. What do they do at 3? Do they pick and call it a day, or you trade down? As you guys pointed out, you create a little more cap space, cheaper to pay a player picked at 6 or 7, for example, than at 3, and everything does kind of hinge. Like there's got to be a sense of maybe uneasiness knowing that, okay, if we go Ace, let's just say we go Ace Bailey, he's our guy. We can't wait to get him on the floor and figure out a way to make it work offensively. We'll re-sign Grimes, which I'll get into in a minute, and then Maxey and George, and here we go. We got bench and youth and Embiid. Or is it, oh man, it's always about Embiid's health? And that kind of leads me to this, that, this draft I think is huge for the franchise going forward, but I believe Daryl Morey doesn't have any type of margin of error here.
No, he doesn't, and it's because he spent so much money in 2024. You got the big shiny toy in Paul George, who he's another one where we all know how good Paul George is. He's a 9-time All-Star, but he's another one like Joel and Rich. You just kind of mentioned it's like, okay, are we waiting for Joel's health?
Right.
Are we waiting for Paul George's health? Look, if you look at Paul George over the past 6 years, his last year with the Clippers, I think he played 74 games. Obviously, that's fantastic. But the year before that, Rich, he played 50. The year before that, 31. The year before that, 54. I mean, he's another one that deals with a lot of injuries.
Breaking down.
This year, first year with the Sixers, he only plays 41.
Yep.
So, yeah, when it comes to Daryl, I mean, this is an important offseason. And I'll be honest with you, if the Sixers fail to get off to a fast start next year, if they are struggling again a little bit, it's really hard to see like a change not happen. It's extremely
You're saying
hard.
a change in season for the head coach and the GM.
Yeah. No, I can see that. You can't blame Nick Nurse for what happened last year. I mean, what's he supposed to do? Half his roster was on the bench in terms of the injuries and stuff. But this year, like if they get off to another slow start, I mean, again, people are going to be looking at Daryl. They're going to be looking at Nurse, and there's going to be some changes for sure.
Do you believe the Sixers mentality changes now after seeing what transpired in the playoffs? Not teams that can make a run, but unfortunately, the negative side of it, Tatum goes down, right? So again, he can be, he's not going to be ready for the season. Obviously, could be out the entire season for Boston Celtics. We know about Halliburton, Game 7, right, tearing the ACL, might miss all of next year. So you eliminate Indiana. You look around the Eastern Conference, Orlando, young team, Cleveland, maybe they exceeded expectations, even though I can't stand that expression. The Knicks had an opportunity. They couldn't, close the deal. Milwaukee still has Giannis. Do they look at it and say, well, wait a second, if we get a healthy, engaged Embiid, load management for 60, 65 games, we can get a decent seeding in the playoffs. We got a healthy George. We got Grimes. We got the bench. We got Maxey. We got our number 3. We can challenge here in the Eastern Conference.
No, they can. They can. But it's the $1 million question. When's Joel getting hurt? And it's just like it's so unfortunate, man, because he deserves so much credit for working on his body now. Maybe it's a little too late because he probably should have done this earlier in his career.
Yeah,
he really does work so hard on his body, but the body just continues to betray him, and it's unfortunate. But it really is true. It's just like you can't go into a Sixers season expecting Joel to be healthy. He's never been able to do it. So I think at this moment in time, I still have Cleveland ahead of them. I have New York ahead of them. I'm going to say Detroit ahead of them as well. They had a really good year, and Cade Cunningham's only going to get better. And they're going to put like an actual roster around Cunningham. I would say Orlando is better than them. And then you could also make a case still for Milwaukee because, as you just mentioned, they're not going to have Lillard, but they still got Giannis Antetokounmpo at the end of the day. So, yeah, look, in theory, the Sixers should be able to contend next year. They have the talent, but you can't rely on it. So that's the big question for sure.
If they hold on, let's say it's pick 1 and 2, and here we go. And all right, you know what? It seems as though they're going to hold on to pick number 3. Is it need or want?
I think you have to go need at number 3. I think you'd have to go need. And I think you have to kind of go needing to fit if you're going to stay at 3, because again, you technically have your stars in the big 3. You kind of need somebody to provide depth, be a cheap young piece, be able to come in and produce right away, which in this instance is probably Edgecombe. But Edgecombe also fits more, let's run,
right,
and have Maxey and McCain and a lot of those guys just be able to be able to just run and play in transition and play fast, which that to your point earlier, where does that leave your 7'2" superstar center?
Right.
So a lot of questions to answer, man. The Sixers are in a weird spot. I would say they're in a pretty weird spot right now.
I know. Listen, there's always buzz with players. NFL draft, stock goes up. NBA draft, stock goes up. I know the kid Trey Johnson's stock going up with Texas, but the fact that Ace Bailey canceled a workout with Philadelphia, and here's a guy, local kid, Rutgers product, Rutgers star. Is that more on the player, or is that maybe on an indictment, or what's perceived as Philadelphia being an organization maybe you don't want to go to or play for, if that makes sense?
I think it's more of an indictment on Bailey, and the reason why he hasn't worked out for anybody. And just like I think that's a little strange. I think he's getting some bad advice, maybe from his agent, maybe from the people around him. Who knows? But it's weird, man. Why would you not work out for anybody? Like, yeah, we understand you're a great basketball player, but man, you got to show up. You got to show up to the teams and get in front of them, meet with them, try and figure out what you can do, things like that. Definitely a strange route. But it also does signal, Rich, to me at least, that he already has a preferred destination. It's obviously not Philadelphia. And I think the best fit for Bailey is a place where he can be the star right away. The ball will be in his hands, and he's going to move forward, right? That's not the Sixers. The ball's not going to be in Bailey's hands.
No. And why you draft a kid that obviously is giving you the notion that he doesn't want to be there anyway.
Now, see, that's a good point, right? Because it's not like Maxey and McCain. Like, they drafted Maxey and McCain without either of them giving a workout. But it's not like either guy was like, no, I don't want to go to the Sixers. In Bailey's case, it really just seems like he wants the Pelicans, he
Yeah.
wants the Wizards, he wants the Nets, maybe the Hornets, maybe something like that. And just to have the ball in his hands and be able to develop right away. Now, those teams I mentioned, outside of maybe Charlotte, if they can get a healthy LaMelo Ball for once, all those teams I mentioned, they don't have their guy. They're in the middle of a rebuild. The Wizards especially need a guy. I know they just traded for CJ McCollum about half an hour ago, but I mean, the Wizards need a guy,
Yeah.
and Bailey makes a lot of sense for them.
And I like the kid Edgecombe too, right? If they want to get up and down the floor, because they've got guys that can run the floor and they have pretty good spacing, especially when Maxi's out on the floor. He can put it on the floor. You know, he can play, you know, wherever you kind of need him to play. He's very athletic. How about Grimes? I mean, that's priority to re-sign him.
Yeah, that's priority number one. I think priority number 1 and 2 are to re-sign Grimes and Gershon Yabusele in free agency. Here's the issue, though. They don't have much money because it's all tied up in the big three.
Yes.
So which is why another reason why I believe they should trade down, because I think you mentioned it earlier, it's cheaper to pay the guy who gets picked 6, 7, 8 rather than pay the guy who gets picked number 3. So, I mean, look, it is what it is. But if you trade down, you can still get a young piece. Like if you trade down to 7, for example, you can get maybe a Trey Johnson or a Con Kneppel or a Jeremiah Fears, a Kaman Malawatch, somebody like that. And then you can also get a win now player while also creating a little bit more cap flexibility to bring back both Grimes and Yabusele. If you're asking me if I had a prediction right now, I think Grimes is back. He's a restricted free agent. Sixers can match anything. I believe they will, unless it's some exorbitant amount of money. Like, say, Brooklyn throws a bunch of money at Grimes to try and force the Sixers' hand. But I do think Grimes is back. Not so sure about Yabusele. He's unrestricted.
Right.
He had a hell of a year. I know there's a lot of teams that have a lot of interest in him. So
I heard him. Would he go back to Europe? Would he go back and play in Europe?
No. I think he's in the NBA. He worked way too hard to get back to the league. Yeah, I think staying in the league.
That's what I figured. Hey, lastly, before I let you get out of here, and you wrote about it on Sixers Wire, and I kind of did a double take that when you think about that core, right, or the nucleus for the Philadelphia 76ers, would they play in, 15 games together this past season?
They played 18. They only finished 15 of those 18.
I just feel as though we have this conversation, like, and you know me, I'm a Knicks fan, but I've pounded the Sixers for what they've done over the last several years. Like, I don't feel they're ever going to win a championship with Embiid. And I felt, and I told you this, I think I said it years ago, even prior to him winning the MVP and even after. And I get it. It's hard to cherry players with these contracts. They should have traded him because he's going to be when it's all said and done, you'll look at him and say, yeah, he had a great career. Could have been an all-time, or maybe he already is an all-time great with the Sixers, but was never healthy. But meaning that, but is they never can get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They never got to an NBA Finals. They never won anything. And I feel as though that's, in 2, 3, 4 more years, that's how we're going to look at the Sixers.
Yeah, it's getting dangerously close to that, right? I mean, look, he's been with the Sixers now. When was he drafted? 2014. So that was 11 years ago. He's played 9 years for them. Obviously, he missed those 2 years. So in 9 years, he's established himself, as I mentioned earlier, a top 3 player, MVP, All-Star. He's now an Olympic gold medalist. I mean, he's accomplished so much. But the issue is, and I think you just kind of mentioned it, when his career is over, and let's say 5 years from now, it's 2030, and we're still talking about Joel, and it's like, man, he could never stay healthy, could he?
No.
Man, they just couldn't get over the hump, could they? So it's like that's going to kind of be the unfortunate part of Joel Embiid's legacy when he eventually does decide to hang it up. And there's going to be too many people just kind of looking back and be like, oh, man, just he wasn't able to finish it off.
Yeah, and listen, you always have to go back, and we know it's Monday morning quarterbacking, and we know the risk to reward and 2020 hindsight and everything. But, at the end of the day, he's 31. And you mentioned he is a big, big dude. Yep. And obviously, the first 2 seasons, injured, not even out on the floor. And the argument was we can't even gauge this kid's talent because he's not on the floor. But ultimately, listen, the Sixers knew that. He declares for the 2014 draft. He foregoing what? The final 3 years of college. And he had that surgery, and we were all talking about, the right foot. And again, he was still picked by the Sixers. A couple of days later, he was still picked. So they knew going in, there might be that risk to reward where we're getting damaged goods, but when he's healthy and he's on the floor, he could be a dominant player. And most of the time he is. The problem is the availability. And I think that's kind of going to be the little check mark, the little asterisk when you talk about Embiid's career.
I agree completely. And it really is such a shame because I want to say in the 2020-21 season, rewinding the clock a couple years, but was when he hired a nutritionist and he was getting in the gym every day and he really was taking everything seriously. Again, as I mentioned earlier, he worked so hard on his body. Just unfortunately, the body continues to betray him.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you can make the case and be like, well, he should have did that from the jump because maybe he might not be in this position right now. And then kind of goes back to your point, Rich, about hindsight and everything.
Right.
2020 and such.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So final last loaded question here, 30 seconds. They trade the pick or they keep it?
They trade it. Again, it's so hard for me to see them actually make the selection. Trade down, create some cap space, bring in a win now player. I think that's the way to go.
All right. And then before I let you get out of here, how can everyone follow you on social and all the great work that you do?
You can always follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Kai_Carlin. All my work is always on there. You can always check out SixersWire.com as well.
And you got engaged? I saw your posting you got engaged, or you been engaged?
I just got engaged on Saturday. I proposed to the love of my life, and I'm extremely happy. And I
look at you. You got the ear to ear. Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely.
I mean, before, you didn't have any hair on the face. I don't know if you were dating somebody. Now you got the full beard. Now you're getting married. I don't understand. Is it me? Am I just getting older? Or are you guys just, like warp speed blossoming in, from boys to men? Right.
Might be a combination of both, Rich.
Well, listen, man, I'm glad we got you back on. We know you got an open invite. We'll start doing some weekly or at least twice a month spots, and we'll recap the draft. But I always appreciate you jumping on board, brother.
Absolutely, Rich. Always good to talk to you, man. Thank you.
All right, you got it, my guy, Kai Carlin. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. Don't forget as well, when we do come back, we got a lot of NFL to get into. I want to hit the break. I see some comments coming in already. By the way, Vince, I see your comment. I'm going to address it on the other side. We are talking AFC South today, Vince. So I just want you to know we're talking AFC South. So, get ready for your hashtag Duval or whatever the hell you kind of say with the Jacksonville Jags. But yes, a lot of collusion coming in on this Tuesday. Keep it locked in on a Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. We are coming at you live exclusively from our good friends over at Triax57. Check out the Facebook page and, of course, Triax57.com. Give them a follow, like, comment, share. It's definitely worth it, and we are absolutely thrilled to be part of their family Monday to Friday from 4 to 6. Quick time out. We will come back on the other side. We'll reset the table. We'll get to this NFL collusion, not colluding. Aaron Rodgers, one and done. And there's a thought the Giants should cut Russ Wilson. They're not even going to let him marinate, let alone cook. We will get into that as well on the other side.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, 440. on a Tuesday edition Middays with Q. A lot of comments coming in. Oh, you guys are wound up on this Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. Let's see what's going on. De facto, send Lamar to New York. Listen, I wanted Lamar Jackson. If you recall, I wanted Lamar Jackson. So Goodell is trying to rig the money. There's definitely enough probable cause that he has an agenda for rigging wins and losses as well. Get out of here with that nonsense. Just stop already. Stop. Goofy talk. Told you the NFL was guilty of collusion, but I guess you'll take Pablo Torre's for loyal listeners with an ear to the ground. I see how you get down, Q. No. Hold on a second. Stop. Hold on. Let's back it up a little bit. So when I said in the past about the NFL not colluding, that's when we were talking about said players. Like, you guys don't use the word colluded and get that confused with blackballed. Don't. Because that's where the argument, we were having this argument or this back and forth or this type of debate at the time. All I'm saying is you have to actually peel back the curtain and you have to look at the layers here. And you got to see what's really going on behind closed doors. Now, as I mentioned, ESPN's not going to, this will be a blurb. NFL Network, it'll be a blurb. But it's a big story because you potentially have locked out players and you've left a lot of money on the table. And that's not a good thing. If this is true, if this is accurate, and no, I'm not taking those two guys' words for it, guys, to be honest. But again, you can't hide docs. And you can't encourage collusion. You can't. The NFL is a billion-dollar industry. The money that filters through the NFL, through these games, through these ratings, through the player salary, merchandising, the stadiums, the PSLs, the licensing, the seat licensing, the advertising, the revenue, the network deals. It's crazy. It's a beast. It's a beast. But if the commissioner signed off on this, and the commissioner basically told 32 NFL teams reduce guarantees and veteran contracts, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible look. It really is. It's a horrible look. It's a bad look. And you're talking about now, the NFLPA, they're there to back the player. And if the evidence doesn't establish clear cut that, hey, they did this, they don't have a case. It's very hard. We can sit here, okay? We can sit here and say that they, colluded. Or I can sit there and say, they blackballed me from a job, right? So you think they only collude on contracts. How naive are you? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this. It's really hard to prove. It's really hard to prove. You've got to line up all your ducks in a row, and you've got to have hard evidence. That's all I'm saying. You have to have really hard evidence. And again, listen, quarterbacks make a lot of money, right? So Pablo Torre tweeted this out. He's got texts between NFL owners after the 2022 signing of Kyler Murray. And this is what he quoted, and he tweeted out. Okay. Cardinals owner Michael Bidwell. These quarterback deals are expensive, but we limit the fully guaranteed money. Now, is that colluded, or is that just not wanting to pay or business sense? And I'm not trying to do the babe in the woods. I'm really asking. I'm being honest here. Like, how are we defining that? Is that just doing your due diligence and realizing that I'm not going to pay these guys? I don't want to pay these guys. I'm not going to pay these guys. Or do you look at it and say, whoa. They're screwing with the players. They're conspiring. They are, again, colluding, right? And it's just hard for me. The owners don't have to give all guaranteed money. So, like, for you guys sitting there saying I'm naive right now, think about it. If you're an owner, who's to say you have to give guaranteed money? You pay a player what you want to pay. But again, if they're all getting together saying, be cheap, screw these guys, don't pay them their max value, then shame on them. From a moral standpoint, from a character standpoint, do you have any legal recourse on that? If you can prove they colluded, then yeah. But if you can't prove it, you got nothing. You've got nothing. So before everyone starts to throw it out there and say, well, this is the problem with the NFL. Like, if I'm an owner, I don't have to give you guaranteed money, period. I don't. What I want to do is I want to incentivize you to perform better. 100%. There are cheap franchises. We know that. Period. Jake chimes in, Q, honestly, who cares? This is how every team's brass approach contracts regarding incentives and guaranteed monies. It doesn't matter. Blinky says, crazy thing is you hear nothing about this important story on ESPN or Fox. They're too busy reporting about speeding tickets. Listen, you guys take it for what it's worth at this moment. You want to take it again and you want to spin it. Okay. We know the owners protect Goodell and Goodell protects the owners because Goodell makes the owners a substantial amount of money. So obviously they're all in each other's ear. We're not going to be naive to think they're not. Okay. And I'll put it in context. I'll get to the comments. I see a lot of them coming in. What I'm saying is walk it back for a moment. Think. Like, be pragmatic here. Seriously, think for a second. If you're an owner and you want to pay Jalen Hurts X amount of dollars, and this is the contract, and you realize you're going to save money at the end of the day because of the incentives and the guarantees. Jalen Hurts signs that contract. How's that colluding? You might be cheap. You might have to have him work for it a little more. You might have to put incentives in the back end, right? I'm telling you, it's almost impossible to prove collusion. It's almost impossible. C chimes in, Q, it's a media story. Fans don't care. But that's not true. That's not true because now all of a sudden it potentially opens up a can of worms. All I'm saying is if the commissioner had his fingerprints on this, then as the commissioner, that's not really protecting the shield. It's not. Do you remember how much Denver got ripped when they gave Russell Wilson that contract, 3 years, $124 million in 2022? I think he had 2 years left on his deal. Now, according to these documents, and I got to see them, if the NFL Players Union, the NFL/Players Union, the collusion case reveal could have been worse. Apparently, Russell Wilson asked for 7 years, $350 million. He settled for 7 years. Now, hold on. At the moment, because I see you guys right now on X getting at me, that's a fair starting point if you talk about the quarterback market. So I think he wound up settling for like 7 and 280, 285. So again, it makes the league look shady. We already knew the league was shady, but we also know the league is also all about business. Context, thus is after Goodell holds a meeting saying the guarantees were getting out of control. Yes, correct. But again, it's owners' money, man. They can pay what they want. It's just like GMs can draft who they want. Coaches can play who they want. Owners can fire and hire who they want. It's a slippery slope. We're going down. It's a slippery slope. Was there any punishment for Kroenke and Jones, including to get the Rams out of St. Louis? No, it's, again, can we come up with another word? I mean, Irsay, these guys took the Baltimore Colts in the night in 84, in the snow. And they moved. A lot of times, it's all business. It is. A lot of times, it is all business. And I know these contracts are out of hand, but I'll be the first one to tell you, listen, if they want to pay the quarterback X amount of dollars, let them go pay the quarterback X amount of dollars. But they don't have to pay the quarterback if they don't want to. They don't need to pay the running back. They don't need to pay the wide receiver. Now everyone's going to come out of the woodwork and say, see, this is what happens. They didn't want to pay player A. They don't want to play player B. And this is why the player left. I mean, we knew it all along. Arbitrator pretty much dismisses the NFLPA case. So if an arbitrator is finding that NFL is colluded, I need more substantial evidence. And I, for one, also believe that the fact that, again, I haven't flipped on the TV, but I'll tell you right now, NFL Network's probably not talking about this right now. ESPN's not talking about this right now. And I don't want to hear this. Well, it's a fan. It's not a fan story. It's not a fan story. If more leaks out and more's uncovered, then you're talking about, you could potentially now be talking about billion-dollar lawsuits, right? The law calls it, conspiracy, right? You're conspiring. You're talking a lot of money, man. A lot of money. Irsay won a new stadium. Baltimore said no. That's why the Colts left. There's more to that story why the Colts left. Come on now, de facto. You should know better than that. Come on. Flex your chops a little bit, will you? Flex your chops. Everyone knows. Everyone knows where the golden goose was hidden back in the day when they moved in the night, right? They just filled up the trucks and they took off. His father purchased that Baltimore franchise in 1972 for $12 million. I mean, it's just crazy, the value. Absolutely crazy, the value. Teams move all the time. Remember years ago, there was talk that the Eagles were going to move. Remember that? That was a big story. A big story. This was probably, oh man, you got to go back, and it was Leonard Toast who basically, guy drank a lot, smoked, gambled all his money away. But there was a thought that they were going to move, and I think they were going to move the Eagles to Arizona, if you remember. They almost moved to Arizona. And that was like the end of 83, 84 season. Leonard Toast was seconds away. He was seconds away from backing up the trucks and moving that team. That's crazy when you think about it. And the guy obviously, unfortunately, was a compulsive gambler and blew a lot of money. But guys, they pick up and they leave all the time, right? Man, good afternoon to you. At least de facto read the room this time. I mean, it's a rarity. I mean, it only took what? A couple years now? Yeah. Leonard Toes, gambling. Yes, correct. Not Toast. Leonard Toes, correct. He was a big time degenerate. Oh, big time. I think the Sands sued him because he owed him like $2 million in debts, gambling debts. Remember the Sands? I think he countersued him, right? Pulled the old, I got too drunk. They kept feeding me liquor and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. There was I don't know if it was on the 30 for 30, but they interviewed one of the cocktail waitresses, or the testimonial was that, the job was keep his glass filled. And I'm not laughing at the gambling problem, obviously. I'm just, how the casino business, even back in the day, was working. Joe D chiming in. Q, I don't buy it at all. Like you said, owners can pay the players whatever the hell they want to play. Tom and Summers' point said, I'm not going to go far as blackballing. I'm not going to say conspiracy. I'm not going to say colluding, but the optics are bad, Q. Yeah, it doesn't look good by the NFL right now. It doesn't. And I'm sure more information will come out, right? Sticking in the NFL, Lloyd Vance, 520, Jonathan Marshall, NBA draft at 5 o'clock. Did you see Rodgers basically said that this is going to be his, quote, final season? I mean, what are the odds? Aaron Rodgers saying, yeah, this is going to be my final season. And if that's the case, I wonder, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you think you had a conversation with Aaron Rodgers and you basically said, is it going to be one and done? Kaepernick just couldn't play anymore. I'm so over that Colin Kaepernick nonsense. I said it at the time. Guy couldn't play anymore. And he sued the NFL. You think after friggin' suing the NFL, you're going to have a shot to play again? Come on, don't be foolish now. Again, read the room. 0 for 2 right there, de facto. You were on a little bit of a run here. Aaron Rodgers, he turns around, he says, I'm one and done. I'm going to play one more season. Well, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to feel foolish. What'd you go and sign the guy for? For a year? It's like, going up to the window and getting a quick little marker. For what? Short-term burst? Makes absolutely no sense. They're going to be so bad this year. That's going to be a train wreck. That is going to be a train wreck watching Aaron Rodgers with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know Vince, who's a big-time Pittsburgh Steelers fan, it's a shame we already did the AFC North, he's got to be beside himself. Has to be beside himself. Has to. And why wouldn't you? You had an opportunity to keep Justin Fields on the cheap, Russell Wilson. And oh, by the way, Mark Schlereth apparently came out and said the Giants should cut Russell Wilson. And just throw Jackson Dart out there. Throw him out there. Go ahead. Why not? Monday Marcus on a Tuesday chiming in Q. How about your boy Nichols? He's going to be the starter number 1 in Indy. Hey, good for Daniel Jones. Apparently Anthony Richardson is fine. Like you said, hey, he's ready to go. No issue. Daniel Jones is going to be your week 1 starter for the Colts. He's going to be the week 1 starter. And I put up their schedule. So they open against the Dolphins, the Broncos, the Titans, the Rams. If they go 2-2 and he plays well, like if he just looks like a competent quarterback, they're not going to bench him. They're not going to pull him. If they're 1-3 or 0-4 and he struggles, they'll turn to Richardson if need be. But if Daniel Jones goes out and plays well and they win a couple games early on to start the season, yeah. Get in those Daniel Jones player props right now. Get in on them. Vince got out at the right time. The name Maurice Claret mean anything to you? He also sued the league and played himself out of it also. He sued the league, but can we do apples and oranges for a moment, right? Maurice Claret was never going to play in the NFL. I mean, we know why he sued the league. And Maurice Claret, he got dismissed from Ohio State, if you remember. He got dismissed. And he challenged the NFL's rule that a player must wait 3 years after graduating high school to declare for the draft. And that's when they start to talk about, the antitrust and everything like that. And he got drafted, I believe, what was it, the second or third pick? Or second and third round, right? He got drafted by Denver, if you remember. But the thing with Maurice Claret, if you go against the NFL, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. When Kaepernick sued the NFL, do you think the NFL was going to throw him a bone? Kaepernick wasn't even a good quarterback at that time. He just wasn't. So don't tell me he was. Claret, he decided, I'm going to go against the NFL. I'm going to make my case. I'm going to stand up here, and here we go. And he signed that deal with the Broncos back in 2005. And I think he gave up guaranteed money, right? Because he wanted that laden deal, that incentive-based deal. And, he basically, everything, early on, he got bad advice. But then when he started to get good advice, he spurned that advice. He basically was looking, and I don't know who the agents were at the time, but they told him it's a bad deal, don't do it. So he wanted to take that deal, package it so he can get paid first round money if he ran for like 1,000 yards, which was nothing back then. And, again, it never panned out. It never panned out, and he got released. And then obviously he got in a lot of trouble, and, I'm not going to say it's unfortunate. You lay your bed, you make your bed, you got to lie in it. But, again, these are apples and oranges that we're talking about, guys. These are apples and oranges when you start talking about conspiring, colluding, when you start talking about, players being blackballed. I mean, that's those are really, really serious allegations. They really are. They're very serious allegations, and I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's never happened in the league. I'm not going to say that. We know it's happened before in the NFL. All right, quick timeout. Want to come back on the other side. Jonathan Marshall is going to join us.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800. Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800. Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, 5 o'clock straight up, 60 to book, 60 to play with. My man Bruce got a couple pops in there during the break. All right, that's what we like. We like to get these commercials running. Again, it's a Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here, powered by our good friends over at Triax57. We're 4 to 6, Monday to Friday. Check us out on social media platforms as well as we'll get back to the NFL talk. We started the show talking a little NBA with the draft right around the corner. That will be tomorrow, manana, as we welcome in our good friend from WMUR. That, of course, is Jonathan Marshall, as we are fresh off the NBA Finals. Won't spend too much time, but you and I were kind of going back and forth, texting each other during the Finals. And I thought even in that Game 7, I thought OKC had no business having Indiana, taking that series to 7 games. I feel as though the Monday morning quarterbacking is Tyrese Halliburton shouldn't have been playing in Game 7, which I think is kind of ludicrous because you tell me, if the kid doesn't play, we're crucifying. If the kid plays and he plays poorly, we're crucifying. If the kid plays and gets hurt, then we're going to sit there and say, he should have been playing. It's like he was in a no-win situation. It's Game 7. You can walk. You got to get out there.
Yeah, I can't blame him. If it's a regular season situation, then obviously you look at it differently, right? Maybe Halliburton and the team, they take more cautious, measures to make sure he doesn't injure himself any further. But with Halliburton, look, we always talk about pro athletes and how much money they're making. How much do you care? How much do you love the game? How much are you willing to put on the line? And he did that. And now he has to face this situation of sitting out for most of next season. And so, just feel so sorry for him because, he was having one of the better postseason runs that we've seen, in recent years, right? And just the run that they've had for Indiana. And so his status as a household name in the NBA was even, getting increased as well. And so definitely an unfortunate situation, but I don't blame Halliburton for making that decision, and I don't think anybody should criticize him. Right? It's his career, it's his life, it's his body. He has the right to make whatever decision he wants to make, and he made a decision to play, and I can't fault him for that.
No. Celtics trade Holiday to Portland. I know the Knicks are looking at some coaching candidates. We already know Tatum with the injury, Halliburton with the injury. I think Poole got acquired from the Pelicans in a 4-player deal. So you got a lot of movement, a lot of buzz going on a day before the NBA draft. And I had Kai Carlin on, who covers the Philadelphia 76ers for Sixers Wire. He believes the Sixers are going to trade that third pick. What say you?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, everything we're hearing from the Ace Bailey side of things, right, is that he doesn't want to be in Philly right now. Of course, there are smoke screens, so you never know what to believe until it actually happens. We can have our opinions and these rumors and these leaks or what have you. The fact of the matter is, draft night still has to happen, right? And so until these things are official, I don't care what anybody says. Ace Bailey still could be a Sixer until somebody proves me otherwise. And so at this point, it seems like BJ Edgecombe could be the pick at number 3 if they stay. If they move back, that could be a wise move, right? You're moving back, still staying in the lottery, but also maybe getting another young piece to add on with that. Maybe you get a guy like a Trey Johnson, who I really like, a sharpshooter, a talented scorer out of Texas. Maybe Colin Knipple, a solid guy out of Duke. And so they have good options, I think, to definitely improve their team. And so, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the draft itself, it doesn't always have the type of buzz, like the NFL draft, right? But I will say this, I think that the NBA draft, I think to some extent, when you look at a guy like Cooper Flag, a lot of people believe that, do you foresee him being a generational type of player in the NBA?
Man, that's such a heavy expectation to put on a young guy, right?
Right.
And when I think generational talents in the NBA, right, who do we think of? Wembanyama, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, right? Like these are guys who had a skill set that was so dominant offensively
Right.
that we knew could carry a team. Now, Cooper Flag is interesting because when I first saw him as a high schooler and, obviously went on to Duke, he's a kid who really has all the tools. Defensively, he's special. But what stands out to me the most is his passion, his energy. He's a guy that can really raise the level of the competition for your team, right? And that's what I look at. When it comes to generational talent, I have to see him evolve offensively first, because to be generational, you have to be able to be that guy offensively to carry the load and make others better, right? And so I think he has the base and foundation. The skill set is there. The work ethic is there. And so I do believe he can be an all-star and one of the great players in this league. Generational, we got to hold off on that, but I do think he's a special talent, and he can be everything that Dallas hopes that he will be, and everybody thinks he will be for sure.
When you mentioned Ace Bailey, right, and kind of interesting, the fact that he kind of spurred the Sixers. So that kind of tells me maybe it's not a good fit at number 3. I mean, you rarely hear about players in there saying, hey, we're not going to work out for teams, right? I mean, you want that workout. You want to see if your stock rises. Is that, and I asked Kai the same question. I am curious to get your thoughts on it. Is that an indictment on the Sixers or just the player himself?
I would say maybe not even a player, maybe the player's representation. It seems, because I think any young kid coming into this opportunity would love to, put on a team issued, gear and get going against his peers, right? And show like, look, I should be the best player. This is why I'm the best player. This is why I'm the top pick. I should be your pick. I want to compete and go out there. And so I'm not going to blame Ace Bailey, but I have to blame whoever's feeding him information and this advice. And he's turning down all the workouts, apparently, right? All the visits. And so I wouldn't say it's an indictment on the Sixers. It's an indictment on whoever's feeding him this advice. And obviously they have better, not better, but different vision for Ace Bailey and when it comes to the start of his career. So if he goes to Philly, obviously you have Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain. You're not the focal point. you have to find your role in that system on a team that's trying to compete for a playoff spot. It's not the traditional lottery team like a Brooklyn Nets situation, a Washington Wizards, where you're going in and you can get all the shots, all the mistakes you want. No, expectations are where they at in Philly. Whether we trust and believe in it is a different story, but the expectations are what they are with Nick Nurse as your head coach, championship winning head coach. If you're Ace Bailey, you gotta fall in line as a rookie. You gotta
Yeah.
find your role and find your place in the league. And if you don't want to do that in Philly, then good luck in Brooklyn or New Orleans or Washington. And hopefully that's a better situation for him to develop. Because another thing is, yes, you can go into a situation and have all the opportunities and shots all you want, but is the environment conducive to your growth as a professional player? Are you
Correct.
building winning habits? And so, yeah, you can get all the shots you want. You can focus on the second contract, but what habits are you building? Are you learning about how to lose, or are you learning how to win and develop those bad habits versus those good habits? And that's all that matters when it comes to being a player in the NBA and entering the league, because your first experience, just like your first job in whatever industry you in, like it sets you up for the next 10 years as far as your experience and the mentors that you have, right? And so that's the concerning question I have with Ace Bailey and whoever is guiding his decision making.
Would Harper have been the clear number one pick if Flag not reclassified up a year?
I think so. Dylan Harper has been one of my favorite players
I mean, he's an elite level
off
talent.
season. No, it's Cooper Flag on his own pedestal, right? And then you have Dylan Harper. And after that, Trey Johnson, VJ Edscombe, Ace Bailey, Con Knippel, however you want to, Derek Queen, what have you. Dylan Harper, to me, he's unique in a sense that to be so young, you can't speed him up. He's going to get to
Yeah.
his spots, right? And we see guys like that in the finals, right? SGA, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson. Dylan Harper is a player of that ilk. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but he's quick in his movements. He's quick in his decision-making skills, and you can't speed him up. And that's a unique talent and that cannot be overstated when it comes to evaluating and projecting guys in the NBA. Can you get to your spot, especially come crunch time in these playoff moments? You got to get to your spot. You cannot be rattled, and you got to make a move, make a decision. And Dylan Harper, that's what I see in him.
Jonathan Marshall kind enough to join us for a couple moments. Rich Quinones here. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. I know everyone has their thoughts, when you come to the NBA draft, the conspiracy and the lottery, and, we want certain teams that maybe have struggled, or teams in the past that have been good franchises, building block franchises, championship type of franchises. We kind of want them to come full circle and do better, because it's all about the ratings. The ratings of the NBA finals stunk. It had no juice. It had, we watched it because we watched it. We're hoops guys. It's part of our job, but it was not an entertaining finals. I get it. You had storylines. I'm watching the last 10 seconds and you got Thunder players off the court already. I mean, it was so anticlimactic, right? It just, I think it's because of the markets. Now, you look at Halliburton going down. You look at Tatum going down for Boston and Indiana, respectively. Then you look at the window of opportunity now in the Eastern Conference. You look at some of those teams that had the top 10 pick that are coming out of the Eastern Conference. And a couple commenters, they were chiming in yesterday, and I thought these were really good questions I wanted to ask you. Is there a draft pick in that top 10 with some of those teams coming out of the Eastern Conference that you believe can help them right away to not become a contender, but maybe be a playoff team, whether it's Washington, Toronto, Charlotte?
Washington and Charlotte are still two very young, right? And they haven't gone through the process of even competing and knowing what it's like to compete for a playoff spot, right?
Right.
So I can't really buy into.
Now, you think Charlotte's going to draft Trey Johnson?
Trey, or for some reason, if Edgecombe is still on the board, I wouldn't be shocked if they drafted an Edgecombe. I think Johnson, Edgecombe, and Con Knippel from Duke are all in play for the Charlotte Hornets.
Now,
all of those moves would make sense for them.
Okay, then that tells me Bailey can drop to Washington, correct?
Which honestly would probably be the situation that he wants. Washington just traded Jordan Poole, so who's taking those shots? There's a lot of shot opportunities for an Ace Bailey. Apparently, that's what he wants, probably, right? So Washington would probably be an ideal spot for him, maybe a Brooklyn Nets situation. You mentioned Toronto. Maybe the Raptors could find themselves in a play-in situation. There are some guys in the board for sure. Whether it's the big man, Kamal Maluach from Duke, possibly maybe he adds something for them. But it's interesting because you mentioned those three teams, and you still have the Knicks, you still have the Cavaliers, you still have.
Sure.
I still think the Pacers will be tough, right? The Magic made a deal for Desmond Bane; they should be improving. So there's still some teams that we have to look at and acknowledge before we're even thinking about the Hornets of the world, right? And the Wizards. They have a lot more to prove.
Mike chimes in, no one should trust the process in Philly. Go Rutgers. I feel as though if the Sixers trade the pick, it tells me that, how do I say this without offending Sixers Nation? If you go one or need, if you pick the best player that you believe is in number 3, then your expectation has to be you're going to build around Embiid. Pardon me. You're still going to build around Embiid. If you trade that pick, it's kind of telling me it's no longer Embiid's team. Mm-hmm. It's Maxi's team. Mm. And Embiid's almost a secondary piece along with George. And if they re-sign Grimes and a couple of their bench players, like that's kind of how I look at it. So it's like rocking a hard place. And if you're the Sixers, are you drafting, hoping, praying, wishing that Embiid is going to be 100% healthy? Because you go into that mindset, you already know the outcome. He's not going to be.
Well, I'm just going to, entertain this with
yeah.
I'm going to go against my thought. We've talked about this constantly.
Yeah.
As the lights go out on me in here, can you still see me? Can you still see me?
I got you. Go ahead.
Okay. I think they have no choice to hope that Joel Embiid is healthy, given the fact that the paycheck is hefty. So, given the financial burdens that Joel Embiid has placed on this team, given the expectations that he's placed on this team, along with Paul George, I think you have to hope that he's healthy and that he's leading this team to the NBA Eastern Conference Finals, let alone NBA Finals, right? And so now I have my opinion on this. I'm pretty strong on this. Nobody can change my opinion on this. I think it's over. I think everything that they do from here on out should be with the thought of Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. That's it. Joel Embiid and Paul George, I think the best is behind them. And that's okay to say. People have to understand to let go. Like, just let go. It's okay. Eventually, you have to part ways with those two. Now, obviously, easier said than done with those contracts or what have you. But every decision that they make has to be for the betterment of the future of this franchise. Joel Embiid and Paul George, to me, although they're still on the team, they're in the rear view for me if I'm running the team. But there's guys who know more than me, apparently, in that front office, and so they're going to keep knocking on that door and banging their head on the brick wall. Second-round exits.
It
sounds harsh, but it's the truth.
I said this earlier, right, to kind of close it out. Even 2, 3, 4 years from now, you look at Embiid, you're going to say, could have been an all-time great, was always injured. It was always the caveat was he was never healthy. When he was on the floor, he was dominant. But you and I go back a couple of years ago, even prior to the MVP and after the MVP, should have traded him.
Yeah.
It's going to go down as just a great player, and they can rationalize it. They can push the agenda, the narrative. They can spin it any way they want. They can try to connect, the dots to 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon and figure out, hey, this is why you have to trust the process and the tanking and all this. What did it get you? It doesn't even get you out of the second round.
The sad thing, Q, is, and I'm seeing it on social media now, with the injury to Jason Tatum, with the injury to Halliburton, it's now giving Sixers fans false sense of hope once again.
To think that the Eastern Conference is open.
It's open to some teams.
Let's
just keep it at that. There's Cavaliers, Knicks, Magic.
Yeah.
And whoever else, full off season, things have to happen. Players get better. We'll see. But those are the 3 teams that I look at as far as, okay, they have to be locked in. This is probably the best opportunity they'll have in recent years. So,
it's funny as we kind of close it out. I always talk about this, when you talk about some of these trades and in sports, some of the best trades that have never made because you don't make them, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been going back and I've been watching The Last Dance because I just find those docs fascinating. They were talking about Scottie Pippen and the contract he signed in 91, before he really became Pippen when he grew up. And I always harken back to people forget they were, they wanted to trade him. Strauss wanted to trade him to Seattle. And remember, he held out. He held out. He was trying to play hardball. They never did. And obviously, look what happens. And, someone on X actually asked me this the other day. They said, if I picked my 1-2 Batman and Robin, would it be Kobe and Shaq or MJ and Pippen? And I'm like, you don't understand how great. Kobe was Kobe and Shaq was dominant and Jordan was rarefied air. But I don't think people really understand how great of a player Scottie Pippen was.
Yeah.
I had people actually tell me Pippen was overrated. And I had to basically pull their sports.
No. Scott Pippen, when I started, watching basketball in the mid '90s and really understanding what's happening, I knew who Scotty was and I appreciated for what he was. But as I got older, I'm like, this dude, as far as just the skill sets that teams covet today, point forward, long, lanky, can defend, can handle it, can pass it. That's what teams want today, right? The two-way wing, and that's who Scottie Pippen was. He was that archetype that teams covet, and teams are trying to find that build and that type of player today, right? And so, no, Scotty he's a forefather when it comes to the modern day two-way wing.
My listeners sometimes, I sometimes let the inmates run the asylum. So, the NFL's the reports coming out about the NFL colluding and whatnot. So Vince chimes in, who, by the way, was a lifelong Steelers fan and then basically decides he's a Jacksonville fan. So I don't really know how much credibility he has with me, but he says, ask Jay Marsh.
Wow.
If he thinks the NFL colludes, don't be biased, CNN.
Don't be biased, CNN.
So apparently there's reports coming out and leaks that the NFL colluded when it came to some players and guaranteed contracts, like not basically, the max deals, leaving a lot of money on the table with some of these quarterbacks. Now, do you believe sports teams, do you believe leagues collude against players?
Well, I ask you this. Is the NFL a $1 billion corporation? That's all you need to know. Where there is $1 billion involved, whether it's an individual or corporation, I tend to believe, it's my personal opinion, that there's some dirt.
There's dirty stuff, but isn't it like strong words? Like you really have to prove that.
You have to prove it.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate. That's all.
Yeah, no, of course. And look, that's a heavy allegation, right? You mentioned Colin Kaepernick. Is that colluding against him?
I think at the time because he sued the NFL and they were like, the hell with you. And I don't believe he could play anymore. And quite frankly, I don't think they wanted the headache. Now, again, when people hear that, they get mad at me.
Right.
They get mad at me for saying that. But the reality is, if I'm a boss, if I'm a head of a corporation or I'm an owner of a business, I can pick and choose who I want to hire. I don't need to answer to you or anyone else at the end of the day.
Right.
And I think at that moment, his time has passed. Now, people want to equate it to the fact that he knelt and the social injustice. And again, the apples and oranges. Both can be true. Right. If that makes sense. And I remember I would argue with people left and right. When you start to talk about blackball, or blackballing a player, colluding against a player, I mean, that's you really have to prove to me. And here's another thing. You go against the NFL, you will get squashed like an ant. You will.
This is true.
Right? I mean, again, there's no argument in that regard. You just can't fight the NFL.
That's a heavy allegation. I will say that, but I'm not going to be naive and say these guys, these owners, are above collusion.
Oh, no.
That's just my perspective on it. You know what I mean?
Listen, if they walk into church and they dip their fingers in the holy water,
exactly.
Is it going to sizzle? Yeah, it's going to sizzle.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, come on, let's be honest here. Let's be honest. Yeah, when it comes to the history of the NFL and the gatekeeping, when it comes to let's just be honest, coaching and the quarterback position, like there's a history here in the NFL, right? So
yeah, 100%. We where there's smoke, there's fire. All I'm saying is, I usually We'll get on the mountaintop. I've got, me, I've got the habit of, we've seen the guys that maybe will shoot first and then look,
Yeah,
fire
yeah,
first.
yeah.
Sometimes I have a tendency to do that. And I'd be the first one to tell you, if it comes out that this is true, they're never going to get rid of Roger Goodell. That's the problem, because Roger Goodell makes the owner so much money, period.
One more thing, Q. It's June
Yeah.
24th, and your New York Knicks still have no head coach.
Hey, I mean, you notice I just
Training camp, lock in.
well, at this part, where are we going? We're going to talk to the Wolves coach, or whoever the assistant. Mike Ward? Is that where we're going right now?
Mike D'Antoni is the Vinny Testaverde of head coaches in the league. Line is always open.
Hey, listen, at this point, if they want to bring back Van Gundy, go ahead. I either one of them, I don't care. So, all right, brother. I always appreciate a couple moments. We'll recap the draft next week, but appreciate a couple moments of you jumping on, man.
All right, Q, take it easy.
All right, you got it, my guy, Jonathan Marshall. Always good stuff. All right, quick timeout. Lloyd Vance on the other side. We'll ask Lloyd if he thinks there's colluding going on in the NFL. Keep it locked in on a Tuesday. A lot of comments coming in. We'll get to them as well.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, 526. I can't believe some of these comments that are coming in. Absolutely absurd. Absurd that I'm going to allow this nonsense to go on right now. Vince, I'm calling. Today we learned Q is a corporate mouthpiece for the Shield. Are you kidding me? Have you listened to me crush this man over the years? How am I a corporate mouthpiece? Where's my friggin' check? Where am I getting paid? And de facto, take it somewhere else on a Tuesday. Vince's takes are not on point today. He just doesn't like what I have to say. We disagree. So Vince wants me to basically appease him and to agree with everything he's saying. Did you not listen to what I said in the beginning? If this is true, if this is legit, shame on the NFL. All I'm saying is it's tough to prove. How is that being a mouthpiece? Seriously. And de facto debunkers, you don't need to throw more matches on the fire, my friend. You don't. You don't need to do that. You don't. It's very hard to prove it. If they screwed these players out of more money with these guaranteed contracts, then yes, it's you're talking about major lawsuits coming about. But I need more information. That's all. I need more information. And now you're saying I'm a mouthpiece for the NFL, the same NFL where I absolutely destroy Roger Goodell constantly. Is that where we're going today? Unbelievable. Refer to my earlier comment, CNN. I'm just here to lob grenades. Unbelievable. No, that's just, come on now. You kidding me with that nonsense? Listen, credit to Pablo Torre and Mike Florio. They got some good, some nuggets. You got one arbitrator. So you got to take what he's saying with a grain of salt. And if his findings show, right, we say the just cause, if there's proof in the pudding that the NFL encouraged collusion, then it's probably a dirty little secret or the worst kept secret in the NFL. And it all harkens back from Deshaun Watson's guaranteed contract. Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson testified So according to a report, 8 owners, Goodell's high-profile player agents, Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson, testified at a hearing held by Droney over 10 days in New York last summer. The NFLPA initially brought the case under former executive DeMaurice Smith, who was replaced by Lloyd Howe in 2023. The union alleged a high-ranking league executive asked New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft to tell fellow owners to not negotiate with large, fully guaranteed contracts. Both Goodell and Kraft denied this at the hearings, and Droney agreed Goodell did not make that request. So there. So you still want to get on me now and call me a mouthpiece? Really? The same person that, again, if you've listened to me for the years, I've absolutely hammered the NFL. And you guys want to go say it, go ahead. That's fine. Mouthpiece away. Joey B, Wolf of Wall Street shirt today, looking sharp. Why not on a Tuesday? I figured why not on a Tuesday? So what is the punishment if this is true? It's going to be lawsuits. Yes, I'm well aware who friggin' Mike Florio is. I said this the other day, how he started. He was Rip and Read with Pro Football Talk. I literally, did you not listen to me the other day talk about Florio with 20 years of legal expertise? But he also has an axe to grind with the league too. Just because Vince is chiming in right now, we're going to bring up Lloyd Vance. I might just basically not even talk about the AFC South because he's a Jacksonville fan right now. Lloyd, how are you, my friend?
What's up, Q, man? Got some excitement going on here, buddy.
No, but listen, you've obviously know what's going on with these reports coming out that the NFL, colluded when it comes to these guaranteed contracts, or being cheap, I should say, not wanting to pay the full amount, or just kind of leveraging themselves to not paying what they believe these players are worth. I have to do more research on it. But again, first glance, you hear something like this, what's your reaction?
Well, it's not surprising, Q, but it'll never be proven. Okay, everybody's looking for that smoking gun and all this. These conversations are had in backroom meeting places and hotels and all kinds of stuff where it's just the owners amongst themselves, and they probably have had some conversations and were not happy about that Deshaun Watson contract, obviously, from that the Browns gave him. Everybody didn't want Jimmy Haslam to give him that contract, but they did, and you just
but
go
look
from
at the
there.
contract now; it's a joke.
Yeah, and I don't think there's collusion. I just don't. I don't think they sat down and said intently, all right, let's keep costs down. Every year the revenues are going up. Q, the salary cap is going up. This year I think it's 272, up from 254 million. So they're getting money, they're getting revenues, and the owners, the TV contracts are going up as well. They're
Huge.
bringing in Netflix. They got Prime,
Amazon
they got all
Prime.
these all these places are going to be having games, YouTube. So it's just they have a lot of revenue streams. So I don't see them trying to hold costs down in terms of contracts.
Cap was set at 279.2 million, an increase of 23.8 million. But if to appease the audience, if per se there are findings that uncover or show that Roger Goodell did in some capacity tell the owners, quote, lower costs when it comes to guaranteed contracts, what are the repercussions? Like, seriously.
The only thing is they would fire him, but
they're not
everyone has to
going
remember
to.
Roger. Exactly. He is the owner. You talk about a mouthpiece. He's the owner's mouthpiece. They pay him very handsomely. I believe it's over $40 million a year to be their commissioner. And he's going to do what they tell him to do. So I just don't see Roger Goodell dictating things. He's always going to fall on the side of the owners.
I feel as though some fans, or just sports fans in general, look, the guys that tune in and listen in, the guys that have tuned in and listened in to me over the years, and you with me over the years, I would say 99.9%, they're extremely knowledgeable. They're very astute. And I think the fans that tune in currently to Middays with Q are very astute, and they're very smart, and they make really valid points. But there's a sentiment out there. People don't fully understand the power that Roger Goodell has, the power, you just cannot It's like, walking up to a Sherman tank with a pocket knife. You just cannot match up and fight it'll never be a fair fight. It'll never. So the point is, like, what's the benefit of this? Like, even some of these players that they think they were cheated out of certain monies, or they could have squeezed or gotten more out of. That's, again, at the end of the day, that's why they have agents, right? The agents are providing. We're trying to set you up with the best possible deals. Prove to me that owner ABC said, "Hey, you know what? We're not going to give them that 30,000 because that's what the commissioner said." No, at the end of the day, these are all business. They're businessmen. They're going to make sound decisions, because if it doesn't make, it's got to make sense, right? Dollars and cents. If it doesn't, then they're not going to do it.
Q, yeah, this is $1 billion owners in industry. They're a Park Avenue organization. People need to always remember that. So if anything comes down, they're going to lawyer up, and they'll outlast anybody in terms of lawyer fees. You saw them do it to Tom Brady. I mean, think of Deflategate. I mean, they went to court and fought it all out, and then they had a better attorneys, and they won. You know what I mean?
All
So
that stuff. Yep.
yeah, you're just not going to beat that machine, and Maurice Claret, way back, he found that out. If you remember, he tried to
And a couple
challenge
guys brought it up.
underclassmen
I
thing.
said the same.
Well,
Couple
good.
guys brought it up. I
And
said the
and
same
next thing
thing.
you know, not going to win. You're not going to beat them in court, and you've just seen it over and over again. And their collective bargaining agreement protects them, because the players, yeah, they got a good deal because of collective bargaining agreement, but the they only give so much, you know what I mean, Q, when they sit down at the table, because the owners have the hammer. So, whether it's DeMaurice Smith or the new guy that's running the NFLPA, they're at a disadvantage because just the revenues and everything. And as you were talking about, the NFL is the number one game around the world. Everybody, have these international games. The TV ratings are through the roof. I think that 9 out of the 10 top telecasts last year were NFL games. So, it's just natural drama that the league brings, and the revenue stream's going to be there, and owners will win out.
Ever heard of Bone Crusher? So I walked outside the club and he thinks I'm a punk. I ain't never scared. I never scared. Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, sorry, Vince. Even you and your Jacksonville squad, you're not going against the NFL, which leads us into the AFC South. Here we go. As we take you up to 6:00, the win totals as we continue around the league. Houston sitting at 9.5, Jacksonville 7.5. The Colts and Danny Nichols 7.5, and the Titans and Cam Ward 5.5. So let's start with Houston. You look at the division as a whole, Lloyd. It's a weak, soft division just by virtue of that. Houston, we know about the offense, very good coaching staff. CJ Stroud, they got a ground game. They got some offensive weapons. We saw what they were able to do in the one playoff game against the Chargers last season defensively. 9.5, knowing that you get to play the Drex like Jacksonville, the Colts, and the Titans twice. I'm leaning towards over 9.5 for the Houston Texans.
Interesting team you have here, Q. Two-time division winning champions, and you have CJ Stroud, rookie of the year, but then last year kind of had that sophomore slump. In terms of looking at statistics, they scored about 22 points a game, but they also gave up 22 points a game. And they have to kind of, D'Amico Ryans, that's his calling card, that defense. They got to fix that going forward. Obviously, they knew the offensive line was a big issue. They've tinkered and moved a lot of guys left, Kendrick Green, Larry Tunsil, they sent him to Washington. Stroud sacked 54 times. So they're going to try to clean that up. In terms of looking at the win total, 9.5, I think, is definitely attainable. They went 10 wins the last couple of years. They won a playoff game. A lot of people don't remember that. They beat the Chargers last year in the playoffs. They lost to Kansas City in the divisional round. But I think the Texans are a team that can kind of bounce back in terms of their performance. And looking at their schedule, they play 7 playoff teams. So, they have a tough game against the Ravens at Baltimore week 5 or so. Week 12, they play Buffalo. And then the end of the season, they have the rematch against the Chargers in week 17. So, but I think they'll bounce back, and statistically, and this team will be better. I say they do get to 10 wins.
Yeah, defensively, they did a heck of a job against the Chargers, right? A couple pick sixes they got to Justin Herbert. They open up the season against the Rams, and they have Tampa, and then they're on the road against Jacksonville and the Titans at home, and then the Ravens in Seattle, 49ers, Broncos. So 4 games right there. A little tough stretch, if you will. You've got Jacksonville. So for fans that are legit Jacksonville fans, and there's probably 1 or 2 on this, chimes in. All right. it all comes down to the quarterback, I think, right? You got a different, scheme, offense, new coach. Obviously, they drafted the kid Hunter. They'll play him on both sides. He just got that nice contract with the money's guaranteed. So you look at Jacksonville, 7.5. I guess the question is, Trevor Lawrence, right? When do we sit there and say he's that guy? He can still be the guy, or he might never be the guy. I mean, I've gotten hammered for being too pro Trevor Lawrence. I think the offensive line, for the most part, held their own last year. I think he missed a lot of throws. He had a couple bad picks. I know, obviously, he was banged up. He missed 7 games to close out the season. He's not the quarterback that we saw in 2022, but I believe that, everything will revolve around him and the ground game. I think the Ingram loss to Denver was a big one. I just, I'm not sold on Jacksonville. I'm just not. I don't see them. I don't see them being a dark horse. I don't see them being a threat to Houston. 7.5, I think, is kind of high. But you tell me what your thoughts are on
Yeah, Q. A lot of people are saying, okay, Lawrence had some success in the past, and last season maybe 4 wins was an aberration, but jumping from 4 to possibly 8, that's a lot in my opinion. As you're kind of talking about, changed a lot of things around with this team. Doug Peterson out, Trent Baalke out, and they're bringing in Liam Cohen and James Gladstone at the GM position, building a team really around Travis Hunter. They traded up to get him, second overall pick, and coming out of Colorado, the Heisman Trophy when everybody's excited about him. I still think he'd be better served to play more defense, but I'm hearing, he's getting more work on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll see how they work that out with him and Brian Thomas Jr., their playmaker from last year. They're going to need to get some work out of Travis Etienne there at the running back position. Offensive line, you talked about that. That's always been kind of a work in progress for them. They do got to do a better job protecting Trevor Lawrence, but his consistency's got to be there as well. They get a lot of, just bad turnovers,
Yeah.
not a ton of interceptions, but I think he had 7 interceptions, but, just fumbles and getting sacked when he didn't need to, holding the ball too long. And he's entering year 5. So, he's not that golden boy first overall pick that he was in 2021. So this is his chance to kind of step forward. The schedule, they play 6 teams that had playoffs, made the playoffs, and they're going to have their opportunities. Obviously it's going to come down to Houston. They face them week 3. And then they host them in week 10. So those are a couple games you got to point to. Also, they play Denver week 16. But overall, it's a weak kind of schedule. And then you got to factor in they do have that international game against the Rams week 7 in Wembley. So, a lot going on with this team, but maybe they can turn around from 4 wins. But I say they come in probably about 7. I don't think they get to 8 wins.
They open against Panthers. So if Panthers win, that sets the tone for their season. On the road against Cincinnati, the Texans, the 49ers, the Chiefs, Seattle, and the Rams. That is a tough stretch. So we talk about other teams in their season being ending, by October. That's a tough stretch. I mean, first 6 games, if they can't come out 4-2, 3-3, they're going to have a long season.
Yeah, they will. They are going to have to come out early, and that Carolina game, that should be a winnable game. At Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, he's had some success against the AFC, and we know about this secondary. The secondary, a lot of people said, oh, they've had a lot of problems in coverage. They're bringing in Eric Murray over from the Texans, Jordan Lewis coming over from the Dallas Cowboys. They're trying to help that secondary. Obviously, Travis Hunter in some situations on that defense. So they got to stop people. Last year they allowed almost 26 points per game, one of the worst in the NFL. So defense has got to get pressure on a quarterback. They need Walker, a guy they drafted high a couple years ago, and the rest of the guys to do a job up front. So interesting team, but I just think that's a big jump for them with their new. Don't forget, it's a new regime, new coaching staff,
Sure.
so they're going to have time to gel.
I mentioned Hunter got that contract, guaranteed money too up front. So much for collusion in the NFL. Colts 7.5 with my guy Danny Nichols. I brought this up before. I don't know what to expect from the Colts. I think the Colts, the Titans, and Jacksonville are kind of in the same boat. I just think it's Texans division by default. But, for, content's sake, as we go around, this is a team that they'll probably run more RPOs with Daniel Jones. He'll probably look a little more confident and more comfortable in the pocket. Look, their offense is also predicated on the ground game. Obviously, with Jonathan Taylor, they got some decent wide receivers and some veterans mixed in. Jones's legs can always be the difference if he's going to be that number one starter come week one. They open against Miami, Denver, Tennessee, the Rams on the road. So they have 2 home games and then they go on the road. Point being is Miami and Denver are going to be very tough games. Tennessee with a rookie quarterback, you give the edge to the Colts, and then the Rams with that defense. If Daniel Jones is 2-2 and looks good, he's going to continue to start. If they're 1-3, 1-4, and he's struggling, they're going to go back to Anthony Richardson. I mean, it's just where we're at right now. For 7.5, if they start, going back and forth, Richardson, Jones, and Richardson, I don't see this team winning 7, 8 games. I just don't. And by the way, they've got a stretch after the bye. Kansas City, Houston, Jacksonville, Seattle, San Francisco, and then they close with Jacksonville and Houston. So the second portion of their 2025 season is kind of daunting.
Yeah, interesting team, Q, because last year 8 and 9 and kind of all over the place. Flacco's gone now. He's back in Cleveland, and unfortunately, their owner Jim Irsay just recently passed away. So Carly Irsay Gordon taking over the ownership there, and she's a lot more hands-on. She's even on the sidelines with a headset. So she's going to be involved in things. And Chris Ballard, the general manager there, Shane Steichen, the head coach, they're on a hot seat, and they're going to have to make some things happen. Obviously, they put all their eggs into Anthony Richardson a couple of years ago, a guy who didn't even have 15 starts in college. They need him to kind of step up, and that shoulder injury is something to watch. He's already getting second opinions on it. I'm hearing he's trying to get ready for training camp, but something to watch, that battle between him and Daniel Jones. Got a lot of weapons, Michael Pittman.
Yep.
You talk about Quentin Nelson, he's a future Hall of Famer on the offensive line. And then they have Taylor at the running back position. Defensively, got some work to do. Kwity Paye there. He led them in sacks with 8. And then away from the dome, they're 3-6, so they got to improve their defense. Allowed 25 points per game, so they're going to look on that side of the ball. Looking at the schedule, it is kind of daunting. They faced 7 teams that made the playoffs, and they're going to face Atlanta over in Berlin in week 10, so you got to factor that in there. But they'll be in the mix. 7.5. I think they get to 8. I think they'll be able to beat that number. It's going to be tight, but it's going to be interesting to see if Jones does play,
Right.
and then he does gel with that new playbook. But there's just so many playmakers offensively for this team. You just got to think, okay, weak division, they'll have their chance to win some of these games, against some of these bad teams.
I don't know how big of a story it would be if Daniel Jones beat out Anthony Richardson, right? I mean, the verdict was still kind of out there when it came to Anthony Richardson. I thought he was poised to have a big year last year. I mean, I had him in one of my dark horse, a guy that can jump and make that top 10 when we're talking about, the quarterback, the jumps, the transition. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, SR 1029 FM The Game. At Lloyd Vance, you catch him every Monday night. And of course, obviously during the week, right here on Middays with Q, and especially during the football season on BYP. That leaves the final team. That would be a very low take on the Titans at 5.5. Now, mind you, starting rookie quarterback Cam Ward, putting all their eggs in the basket with Ward to start things off for the season. So it's going to be a sink or swim type of year for the Titans. And again, tough spot, right? Rookie quarterback on the road, Denver, at home against a very good defense in the Rams. Then a divisional game at home against the Colts, a divisional game on the road against the Titans, have to go out west, Arizona. I mean, so it's tough. They drafted the kid in the second round out of UCLA. They went defense. They went edge. They went safety. Then they went wide receiver in the 4th. I think they have some weapons. I'm very curious to see exactly what Ward can do. I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to have sustained success running the football. And I know they got Pollard back there. I know they have the other kid that had a handful
CJ
of
Spears.
carries. Yeah, but their offensive line is shaky, and you need a very good, a very good ground game. That's a quarterback's best friend to start things off. So if they can't run block, if they can't pass protect, I don't see them scoring a lot of points. And quite frankly, again, I'm looking at their number 5.5, 6 with a rookie quarterback. I'm inclined to go under.
Yeah, now with this team, everybody expectations are going to be low, but I think right off the bat, I think that 5.5 is a little high for them. Only 3 wins last season. There's some change in the air with this team. We'll see. Amy Adams Strunk is the owner. She's going to be looking at the general manager position. Mike Morganzi's coming in there. They fired Rand Carthon after 1 season.
Yeah.
Brian Callahan, he came over as a genius from Cincinnati, and he got the playbook, bop, 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 and he has not done a good job. So it's going to be he's on a hot seat. This offense only scored 18 points per game last year. Defensively, all kinds of problems. One of the worst in the NFL, allowing 27 points per game. Nowhere to go but up. But Ward, good young quality prospect. He looked really good combine, answering all the questions, looked good as number 1 overall pick. He's going there to kind of change the culture. We'll see how they can do that. They're bringing in guys like Tyler Lockett at receiver, veteran guy coming over. But there are just a lot of things to fix with this team. And when you look at their schedule, they play 6 playoff teams. They have a tough, Houston obviously twice. They play the Chargers. They play Kansas City in Week 16. So there's some tough games, and I think yes, they will improve. Things will get better, but you may see the coaching change here after possibly 2 seasons. And I think maybe okay, they can get the 5 wins, but 5.5 is too much.
You look at his projections. Do you see these ranges 3,200 to 3,800 yards, 17 to 25 touchdowns? Do you see him falling? If Cam Ward has 3,500 yards and 23 touchdowns and 6 picks, that's not a bad rookie campaign on a rebuilding team.
Yeah, Q, if he can keep his interceptions under 10 and kind of not do the things, force passes that a lot of young quarterbacks do. Now, obviously, in terms of consistency, there's nowhere to go but up. Will Levis, he was probably one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league last year. They knew they could not come back with him at the starting position. I think he could get to about 3,500 yards. They're going to throw the football a lot. As I said, they have Lockett there, bringing in Van Jefferson as well. They need to get stuff from their former high draft pick Treylon Burks. He's a question mark on there. He hasn't been doing a lot, but the running game is kind of average. Tony Pollard, he functions better as an RB2 in my opinion. And then you have Taj Spears, a guy who's good catching the ball out of the backfield, but between the tackles, not much there. So it's going to, may be behind a lot, and you may see Ward throw the football, padding his stats late in games.
We both agree that it's Houston's division to lose, right? I mean, they should be the clear-cut favorite to win that division.
I believe so, yes. And when you look at, roster for roster, a lot of these guys, they're rebuilding. They have a lot of work to do. Now, Jacksonville, you would think with some of the talent that they've assembled, these high draft picks, et cetera, that they would, be able to challenge Houston Texans. But I just think with that new coaching staff coming in there, Liam Cohen's going to need more than 1 year to clean everything up.
Real quick, lastly, Aaron Rodgers basically said it could be his quote last year. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, did you know that going into this courtship? And if not, you kind of look foolish, right?
Well, they knew they gave him a 1 year deal. That's just a prove it deal. And it was like, okay. There wasn't many options out there. It was like Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, on their roster. And they're just going to try to play defense and run the football. But either way, it's not a good look. And we'll see if it's a new Aaron Rodgers at age 42. But I don't think he's the next Tom Brady. I just don't think at that age there's going to be much left in the tank.
I just, for the life of me, don't understand what compelled the Steelers to just pursue Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that they waited on him and they had that wink wink side deal where okay, you come in when you want. Typically the Steelers are all about team and taking care of business. But they acquiesced to him, and we'll see what he brings to the table. Now they're not giving him all the Packers that he had from the past that he brought to the Jets, Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard and all those guys. But, we'll see how he fits. And he's going to have to fit their team structure. Mike Tomlin was no nonsense. And he's not going to pull some of the stuff that he did with Mike McCarthy and some of these other guys in the past.
Yeah, and the other thing is doesn't really have to worry about mentor. I mean, he never was going to, mentor anyone. He turned around and said, "I don't want the attention. When I'm done playing, you won't see me." Dude, stop. You're all about attention. Like, seriously.
Stop going on McAfee and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, yeah, I get it. He's getting $1 million, but still, like, everything you're saying is just you're talking out of both sides of your mouth here, guy.
Yeah, he's Aaron Rodgers. He's a quirky guy. But, on the field, we're going to see if he can get it done. But for the Jets, he looked terrible, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing now is it'll be a story, right? It'll be a story. Last season, here we go. But I just, my gut tells me it's going to be ugly. I'm not going to sit there and say it's going to be Johnny Unitas with the Chargers or Joe Namath moving around with the Rams. I just, Payton couldn't even throw it. He relied on that too as MVP with Denver after that injury. I just think, I don't know, man. I can see him getting knocked out of games. I can see him getting hurt. I'm not wishing for it. I just don't believe his body can withstand the rigors of a 17-week schedule. And the fact that I'm not entirely confident on the Steelers' offensive line. It's very shaky at best.
Yeah, typically it does not end well for quarterbacks that are aging. And
No.
I still remember one of the last game. I covered Brett Favre's last game. What was it, like on a Tuesday night or something in Philadelphia? He didn't even suit up. He was on the sidelines for the Vikings, and they had another quarterback running out there, Joe Webb, leading them to
Joe
victory.
Webb, who actually beat the Eagles on Monday Night Football, the snow game. Remember that, the Joe Webb game?
Yeah. So this, it's that we'll see how it ends, but the way he's moving after that Achilles injury, he's just not. His legs aren't what they used to be, and the Steelers' offensive line is not. Your protection scheme's not the best.
It is not A-Rod. Pittsburgh shaky as the Death Star Mike. Vince says Sunshine's going to cook you. I'm telling you, he'll be the MVP conversation in week 10 or 12. We don't know about that. All right, I'm fast approaching 6. I will let you get out of here. We will do more NFL on Thursday. Lloyd Vance, catch him every Monday, 8 to 9. Lloyd Vance is Insider Football, SR 1029 FM The Game, and also follow him on X at Lloyd Vance. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, Q. Talk to you later.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us for a couple moments before we get out of here as we kind of make that transition back to me. Fast approaching 6 o'clock. Don't forget to always get social with us. Tomorrow, a lot more NFL. We'll continue the conversation. We'll continue to look around the league. We will get into a little MLB. You got the NBA draft. We'll give you the final thoughts on that on Wednesday's show. Costco on Thursday. Lloyd back on Thursday. Also, John Bueller on Friday at 5:05. That's when we typically will have him in. I did not hang up on Lloyd. We just had a bad transition, as we like to say in the business. I don't hang up on people. Never hang up on Lloyd, ever. All right, as we're fast approaching 6 o'clock, I want to remind everyone, do not forget to get social with us. You can follow along at Triax57 on X, IG, and on Facebook as well. We're live on their Facebook page. If you missed any of today's show, not a problem. On demand, you just go to Triax57, check out the program grid, click on Middays with Q. Now, there's no hanging up. You know it, and I know it. Vince with the last Duval. Oh, man, they're going to have a rough season. They are going to have a rough season. That was a quick gray screen. Wow. He's hot. A meeting with the league. I'm late for a meeting with the league. Get out of here. It was just, we call that the transition in the business. Leave it alone, boys. Leave it alone. As always, follow me on X, IG at Rich Q on Q, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic, the YouTube channel as well at Rich Quinones. And we always appreciate you guys chiming in. We will continue with the NFL conversation tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe more news will drop. Maybe more information will be disseminated among us on colluding, who's not colluding. By the way, athletics in Detroit right now delayed top of the first. I'm going to assume weather. Mets stinking up the joint. Yankees stinking up the joint. Judge went yard again. You got the Phillies starting a 3-game set tonight against the Astros. So a little more baseball tomorrow, and we'll have Steve Gardner on later on in the week. Quickly. We got the Qfecta, and I gave you, we'll go Arizona over the White Sox, Brewers over the Pirates, Fever tonight, WNBA, as we close that out. All right, as always, appreciate Jonathan Marshall, appreciate Kai Carlin for jumping on board, Lloyd Vance as well. Fast approaching 6 o'clock. Don't forget, you can catch us tomorrow from 4 to 6 right here on Triax57. Be safe, be sound. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Hasta luego, mi vida.